2022 Endurance eRacing World Championship, brought to you in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriots, Azatec Sim Sports, Global Flix, Motorvision.tv, Stengolm, ESTV, and Film Vault Limited.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
Hour, 30 minutes to go, and at the moment we're into the final hurrah as I was just about to do a lovely introduction and Jakub Kowalski has a moment going out of the first corner. Real shame for Glam Racing. Really good to catch up with Maria Rinhak, and Yusuf bin Sahal tagged me in the Discord earlier and I said I'll definitely outdo him. Yusuf doesn't know what's coming when I go off in about probably the best part of just under half an hour's time, but it's Alex Goldschmidt, Kieran McGinley, GTR24H, EEWC 2022 season opener, 12 Hours of Matsusaka. On your screens is the LMP2 class leader, Sem 9 Axel, with Nakib Aslan having been partnered with Inigo Anton from the Philippines. They are leading the charge. Joao Pitayas from Burst Esports, Gooder Sunglasses in the 94, about 20 seconds behind. At the moment, Joao Pitayas is actually out on track. Good to catch up with Rasmus Andreasen from that car as well. Bense Horvath for Team Iris as Jesper Pedersen pulls the car, the 18 overall leader in DPI in that class for Burst Esports Simplexity. Satellite Racing, Juices Motorsport Club, after their massive incident, got a 1 lap penalty for rejoining the server and a 60-second stop-go penalty for not informing race control. And Cyberlinks Racing, they've been through the trenches as well, especially with that Alexei Zagorodnev being at the biggest receiving end of that, unfortunately, but has managed to keep the car going. Tigran Mkhitaryan is behind the wheel of the car at the moment. Jesper Pedersen leads overall ahead of Henry Sinnick from Muradness E-Stars. Denis Sashenko for Unison Racing completes the top 3 in DPI. Sebastian Deville for Team Adrenaline, 4th in the 33 car. Team Viaductin in the number 1, and I think Alistair Young's still showing on the Sem 9 Axel car as well, and this is effectively what is happening at the moment. And GTE, Wojtek Polezny leads for Juices Motorsport Club. They are the best part of nearly a minute and 50 ahead of Deegan Fairclough Sim Racing Lab in 3rd place. Nikolai Bezrukov for Unison Racing 4th. Zoltan Varkonyi 5th. ID for Mugen Sim Racing. ID Sim Sport in the 166 in 6th position, with Satellite Racing in the 264 Corvette. It's still in the race. MCM Motorsport and Mosto Pescara in the 27 and the 53 round out the GTE class. And going to GT3, it's Volante Racing by Azatec Simsport with Alessio Neto behind the wheel. B32 Racing started last in overall and actually in the class. They're up to 2nd ahead of Mugen Sim Racing's Gabor Hevesi, who we spoke to earlier on, talking about what happened with the gearbox problem when the Christian Kianik was going through 130R. Carl Lickergaard for DSR, Gadget Huset Dotdecor in the 777 Callaway 4th. Excuse me, take a breath then. Teleforingen, Gert Nielsen, 188 BMW M6 in 5th, and Jakub Kuba Kowalski for Glam Racing in the 404 Audi. Still in the hunt for points at the end of the race with Pedro Rodrigo and the team at CKR in Brazil, unfortunately DNFing earlier on in the race. Cisco S saying, bring it home, Alessio. Mikael F saying, Volante Valor. And then I think RS1 Simulations, is that hot? I think that's Roman Senor from Team Adrenaline on that one, saying, yes, I think, ha ha ha. We're getting the restream chat on the on one of the displays in front of us. But I want to talk about Mugen Sim Racing. You actually talked to me about that in the commercial break, Kieran McGinley. They had the engine problem going through 130R, the car bouncing off the rev limiter, having accidentally dropped down probably what was more than 1 gear. It would have been 2, because otherwise it wouldn't have blown the engine sky high. If it was in 5th, it was in 4th. That's more realistic, more real in terms of bouncing off, as Mugen Sim Racing going a little bit wide coming out of 130R. But to be back up into 3rd position, they've done a really, really good job, and that's a good haul of points, isn't it, at the end of 12 hours of racing? Yeah,
in a sense, it's points gained rather than points lost in that one. They were a long way behind the leaders at that point. At the, 90 minutes in the race, they found themselves really between a rock and a hard place. They got on with it. They, just put lap after lap in and got themselves now up into the top 3. And Alex Goldschmidt pointing something out. What have you spotted?
The number 11 7.9 axle car is parked nose end in the garage, I'm afraid. I've just spotted it, so that's a real shame. That's going to be another car that won't be bringing it home to the checkered flag in around about an hour and 25 minutes time. I'm just having a look at what's happening elsewhere up and down the field in terms of the battle in LMP2. Just seeing Nabil Aslan coming through the final corner. There's Joao Pitaes not too far behind, about 23.1 seconds separating the two. So Aslan crosses the line. Pitaes coming through 130R. So it looks to be it's going to be between those two for the class victory. We've had chats with Tom Oldenmenger and also Rasmus Andreasen from the 94 car. We've talked to him. Pitaes now coming into the pits. And one of the things about the R Factor 2 platform is that you can also notify the server when you are going in for a pit stop. And that's quite important for us because it gives us an indication of how things are changing. And realistically, this is going to be absolutely... I'm just getting a message from John Fabricius, our CEO, at the moment. I'll wait to see what he tells me, but you have to... I think his words are Alex Young is going to... John's message to me is Alex is going to absolutely scream. I think he's going to hit the roof and be bouncing off the ceiling. But when you think about it, the best part of just over 5 weeks ago, this team was running in the Le Mans 24-hour virtual and finished 4th out of, 30 cars in LMP2. So we know that the opportunity to get a race victory under your belt to start a real... And Alex was very, very adamant. He said, look, this is our first race of the season. And to me, the number 21 car, they brought 2 drivers, Nabil Aslan and Inigo Anton. They have been like a freight train right now. And they're 95 seconds ahead of Burst Esports Good as Sunglasses. And you could see from Rasmus's expressions on his face that they knew that they had a challenge. And I know for a fact that you might see their face that like, but inside they're going like, you know what, this is really cool. We're really glad that we're competing against such stern competition, and that's what you want in a championship.
Yeah, I mean, for a close and competitive championship, yes, you want a close competitive championship, but know that it's one you can win.
Yeah.
It's sort of the greatest compromise you can have, really. I suppose any driver would say, I'd love to win a championship, regardless of how it is. I just love to win it. But yeah, to have these journey of steps along the way, and there'll be a couple of bumps in the road. And I think today, Burst Esport, they qualified both their entries on the top of the DPIs and the LMP2s, and they will be looking back at this and thinking, in the LMP2 class, what didn't click? Why are we, nearly a lap down on the current leaders, and a lap down when you're now into the last 80 minutes of the race? A lap is not that big a margin.
No, it isn't, and we have seen it before where you get towards those last, the golden hours, I like to call it, the last 60 minutes. And I'm sorry, I had to take a bit of a brief pause there because I cannot believe that we've been going on the broadcast for just over 11 hours. We've still got a little bit more time to go. They do say that you'll have, when you do have fun when things, when you really enjoy, time flies by whilst you're having fun, and this is very much the case. We're getting some more messages via the YouTube channel. Big thank you for everyone. Aldo14 Silva says, speed up, Alessio. Well, at the moment, with the way that things are going for the 585 Volante Racing by Azatec SimSport car, they are comfortably ahead. And I never thought I'd be saying this. B32 Racing are in second position. They're on an in-lap. I'm actually just looking at the car at the moment as it's going through the Casio Triangle. I'm just going to keep an eye. I think I'll just see it and wait for it to veer right. And it actually goes past pit lane at the moment. So it's... If... I wonder if Yusuf can see... Yeah. I'll send you a picture a bit later on, Maria, of the big sticker that you provided me with the other day, and Yusuf will not be getting any cake. He's barred.
Yeah, there was the option of cake, and Yusuf chose not to. He chose to give up that cake.
Means more for you then.
It does. It does.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Chris, we can't send you anything in the post because it's perishable. Never mind. But the B32 have done an absolutely brilliant job. They have been properly consistent. Just seen Gavor Hevesi, he said that he was getting behind the wheel of the 82. He's just put in a personal best, a 2 minute .0. There's 2 minute 3.309. Trying to get my numbers out here. You can see how. And one of the interesting things now, Kieran, the track temperature a few hours ago was, well, the air temperature was 15 degrees Celsius. The ambient temperature has creeped up. It's 21 degrees. Track temperature now 26 as Joao Pitaes goes up the inside of the 717 GTE car. That's got Nikolai Bezrukov behind the wheel. That's also going to add another bit of spice to the mix, isn't it, with around about 20 minutes to go before we go into the last 60 minutes.
Yeah, and all eyes will be locked on and see what on earth will happen. I just wanted to expand on what you said for the B32 racing team. I don't think any of us in the commentary scene, any of us in the commentary box could have predicted, let alone put money on B32 being in a position to finish in second place.
Yeah.
It is astonishing. They have put on a fantastic show. The pace has been good. Their consistency has been second to none.
Yeah.
And they've thoroughly earned this second place. They just need to make sure they get that car across the line.
Yeah, they're just in the pit lane at the moment, so the timer is ticking away on the front of the windscreen at the moment. It's now coming up to 10 seconds on the clock, so new tyres will be going on the vehicle, new load of fuel, into the car, keeping an eye on what's happening with regards to GTE at the sharp end of the field. It's now Tony Janssen behind the wheel of the 74 Juices Motorsport Club Aston Martin. They're the best part of nearly 40 seconds ahead of Musto Pescara's, that's MPE for short, the number 54 car. And that is on an in-lap, I believe. The gap is now increasing, so I would imagine that Deacon Fairclough will be in the pits as we speak. I'm just going to keep an eye on, just looking for the car at the moment. That is now making its way through the S's. So this time around it will be, there is the number 54, the Brit. I've seen him previous races at the Junior Saloon Car Championship. So a real-life young grassroots racer in his own right, but managing to manhandle a Porsche 911 RSR GTE in the virtual sim racing world. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Fairclough's done a really good job.
Yeah, he has. I unfortunately haven't seen a lot of him in my stint in the commentary box this time around, but from what I have seen, he has been putting in a great performance. Consistent awareness is up there as well, which is so important when you're in that GTE class. You've got to have every wit about you in order to make sure not only you can get the overtakes done, but you can also be aware of those hypercars and the production cars making their way through. And it is a lot. It's a taxing job to be able to do that. And I think Deegan, with that slight bit of a mistake there on the entrance in towards Spook Up, I mean, if that's the worst thing that happens to Deegan Fairclough in this race, I think you can consider it a very, very successful adventure.
He's done multiple stints behind the wheel of that Porsche 911. I think the jury was out when Yusuf first clapped eyes on it when he was in production HQ when we initially started talking about liveries. But you know, he's young. He'll probably be filled with adrenaline right through his veins, and it's just going to show that even it doesn't matter how much adrenaline is through your system. There is going to be a case of how your body is reacting to the adrenaline. There's the sort of the plateau, and then you get that sort of like decrease of adrenaline spike in your system, and thereby your energy levels start to dip. You know, reflexes go, oh, hang on a minute, that was the leader in LMP2, Nabil Aslan. Now obviously they're racing 7.9 axle based out of Malaysia. The time difference, okay, it is now coming up to 7:45 in the morning in Malaysia as we speak, particularly in Kuala Lumpur, which is where Alex Young is based. I'm going to sort of try and see if I can queue up a replay of what happened to Nabil Aslan. So I will try and get that up and running. So once I've got that teed up, we'll have a look at it very, very shortly, Kieran.
Yeah, we will indeed. As Marco Slanzi in the 164 Satellite Racing Machine had to think twice about making a move. I think that was on the Glam Racing 404 Audi going in towards 130R. Thought about the move to try and just get past through the traffic, and then instantly decided against it, which was probably the very wise decision, as we see the number 18 burst car making its way through, just leading the way, leading the class and leading this race. Currently then having a look at the number of laps completed in this race. Guess how many? 349 laps completed so far.
That's a hell of a lot of kilometres.
It's a lot of kilometres. It's a lot of distance we've covered in this race. And for the likes of Jesper Pedersen, you know, he and his team have been putting in a stunning drive all race long, and barring a spin or two, a couple of off-track excursions, I mean, that's to be expected over 12 hours, but they have been really solid, and they've proven today that they're going to be so difficult to beat throughout the season.
Right, okay, production, I've got the replay ready, teed up to see what happened. Right then, we're going to do this at full racing speed, ladies and gents. Nabil Aslan into the first corner, flashes the headlights, into turn one, back end steps out to the left, catches it nicely and neatly, keeps it from going into the kitty litter. Well held, Nabil Aslan. 350 laps equates to 1,780 kilometres of the Matsusaka circuit, so still quite a lot of laps to be covered in the next hour and 14 minutes. I mean, just sort of looking at other things, I'm trying to hang on a minute. keep your eyes on DPI, because Henry Sinnick is in second position for Muradnis E-Stars. Denis Ishenko is less than 6 seconds adrift, not lapping on the same pace as Henry Sinnick, but could be closing. That's going to be an interesting dynamic. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled on that one. The gap has now gone down to 5.8 seconds, and I've just picked up the Unison Racing car as we speak, and I'm riding on board with it at the moment as the car makes its way through Spoon Curve.
Yeah, so definitely one to be watching on, as we see riding on board then with that number 17 Unison Racing machine heading up towards 130R. Yeah, as you say, gap is it's roughly around about 8 seconds, and it is coming down. So, it won't be any more. Denis Ischenko catches the grass on the entrance in towards the Casio Triangle, and that's so unfortunate for Denis Ischenko. That's the curse of the commentator right there, but closing that gap, clipping the grass though on entry, managed to gather it back up, but he would have lost all that time.
Yeah, that's climbed over 6 seconds right now, and that's going to be climbing a little bit higher for Denis Ishenko from Unison Racing. Unison Racing, last year's championship winners for GT3, and as a result of that they did have to move up, and they decided, Alexei Maizin and the crew decided to bring a 2-car assault, one in DPI, one in GTE, so splitting a dual campaign, so to speak. They had to fight against balance of performance changes on the R-Factor 2 platform courtesy of Studio 397. There were some changes mid-season, but Unison rose to the challenge and managed to get through. So effectively, from that perspective, they're now going to get past the satellite racing car. Gap is still around 6.1 seconds. And you can just see that Ishenko has not given up the hunt quite yet, has he?
Not just yet. Denis Ischenko, though, making his way onwards and upwards after that little bit of a mistake at the Casio Triangle. But, not let that affect him too much.
That was a bit of a replay I actually did there, my bad. you can see it does kind of happen. It is a very, very long day for not just you people watching at home, on Motorvision.tifo, esports television network, and of course on the relevant GTR24H streams, so LinkedIn, YouTube, I think we're on Twitter as well, amongst other platforms, and also YouTube. A big thank you to everyone that has interacted with us so far. We really, really do appreciate your company that it has been over the last... crikey. I think I've lost count of the amount of hours that we've been going for, but it's now coming up to just past 10 to 1 in the morning on Sunday, the 27th of February. I can't believe I'm saying that, we're nearly at the end of February. And we're nearly a sixth of the way through 2022 in terms of the calendar year, Kieran.
I mean, we are quite literally in the 11th hour of this race.
Yeah.
It's absolutely flown by. And we've only got 70 minutes left on this clock, and we're going to be pretty quickly looking at the last stints of the likes of the hypercars and the production cars. For the GT cars, they'll be looking to make their last stops very soon, but the question is, which of each team, who's going to be sent forward as their final driver to take the checkered flag?
I wonder if we might see Michi Hoyer being the one that brings the car home for Burst Esports and Plexity. I would probably say that maybe Inigo Anton for 7.9 Axel in LMP2.
I would have thought, I'd love for chat to correct me if I'm wrong, but I would have thought you put your fastest driver in last to take the checkered flag, so it would be whoever you think is the one that can really extract the last bits of pace out of the car, because you never know what that can do towards the end of the race. You leave them till last and just make sure you extract every bit of performance you can as Denis Ischenko makes his way onto the start-finish straight. There's Nabil Aslan in that 7.9 Axel number 21 machine, and as you were saying earlier, the duo here at 7.9 Axel in the LMP2 category have been doing a fine job indeed.
Yeah, and we've just actually had a message from Robert Paul in the chat on YouTube. My game crashed for the number 15, so he had some buffering on, so whether that was frames per second, maybe if there was a GPU issue. We have actually, or CPU issue, we have actually talked about heatsink. So like say when you have an issue with the thermal paste on the chips as well, for like the GPU, the CPU, if they're not changed and maintained on a regular basis, you can get thermal throttling that will then restrict the frames per second and also cause software to start buffering, and that can then cause that as well. We have had a couple of drivers actually talking to the team behind the scenes, and I've actually even heard that a CPU on one particular driver's PC was running at just over 80, well, the best part of nearly 80 degrees Celsius, and that's quite high when you normally would look at the performance of a GPU or a CPU, probably around about between 40 to 50 degrees Celsius at its absolute optimum, Kieran. And that's a bit like saying that your car's got a coolant leak and it's overheating rapidly.
Yes, and it's one of those things that it needs to be addressed as soon as possible, because the longer you leave it, the more damage it can leave as a lasting legacy of the problem. It's a problem that if you let it get worse and worse, it will just keep deteriorating. The hotter it gets, the more damaged it gets, and the more damaged it gets, the hotter it will become. So it's really this spider's web you really invite yourself into. As I'm just watching here, riding on board with, I believe this is Henry Sinek, in that, no, sorry, it's Denis Sischenko coming into the pits in the Unison car, coming in for what probably will be the final stop for Unison Racing.
Yeah, actually have to say a big shout out to Maria Rinhak. She's just messaged me on Facebook saying, forgot to say thanks to all you commentators, you are doing such a great job even in the last hour. Such an amazing team. P1 for you, Maria. Tusen Tag, thank you very much indeed, that's really appreciated. Also, we'd like to say that we're really proud to be part of this organisation. It's been a real journey for all of us, and it's great for us to be here in the studio when we've got Chris Buxton here. You know what, I think the banter will be absolutely through the roof. Kieran will be breaking through that glass ceiling, and you know what, it will be an absolute pleasure to have him here with us in person. And it's one thing to be on the side of a webcam, it's one thing completely different, as we found out at the Le Mans finale last year, how different it was being in the studio here in Denmark.
Yeah, and I'm sure Chris is looking very much forward to actually making his debut here in the Denmark headquarters, because we need our resident whimsical wordsmith and what is it? Metaphor maestro.
Metaphorical maestro. That's the one.
And that's the phrase I would use to describe our very own Chris Buxton. And it's always a pleasure to work alongside him, because as we've been previously saying, he will come up with those metaphors that you just were not thinking of in the first place, and it's just fantastic. I absolutely love it.
It was really funny when you said, well, I know I'm going to make sure that you don't call me a coward, and you said, will I tarnish you with that moniker? And I put in the chat straight away, yes you would, Chris Buxton.
Yeah, you would. I saw that, yeah.
So, Chris, be warned, the banter will be plentiful when you end up here in Denmark, here at the GTR24H studios. Right, we are about to turn to the top of the hour in just a handful of moments time, but we're going to run through the running order at the moment. So it is very much between LMP2, it's 21.7 seconds that is between Nabil Aslan from Sem9 Axel, Burst Esports Good of Sunglasses, 21 seconds adrift courtesy of João Pitaias from Portugal in the number 94. Benz Horvath for the number 77, Team Iris, third place. Marco Slancy for Satellite Racing, the 164. Rounds out the top four. Saba Kiss now behind the wheel. We saw how quick that driver was earlier on in the number 15 Juice's car. And Tigran Mkhitaryan for Cyberlinks Racing rounding out the top six. We now go to the DPI class. It's Jesper Pedersen leading the way for Burst Esports Simplexity in the number 18. And the gap now between them and the number 64 Maradnis E-Stars car, piloted by Henry Sinek, is 7 laps adrift. It's a further lap. Back. Well, they're on the same lap now. Denis Sischenko from Unison Racing, the number 17, round out the top three. Sebastian Deville for Swiss racing outfit Team Adrenaline. They're in fourth position. A further 2 laps adrift. A further 6 laps. It's Team Vardux in the number 1. and showing 148 laps down. Looks like there's no further activity for the number 11 Sem9 Axels. That car looks like it's out of the race. We're going to go through LMP2 again. So Nabil Aslan, Joao Pitaez, Bente Horvas, Marco Slanzi, Sabakis and Tigran Mkhitaryan round out the 6 that are still running. Kieran, take us through GTE, please.
Yeah, GTE, the number 74 Juices Motorsports Club car at the hands, Tony Janssen at this moment in time. Then it's the 54 Musto Pescara car of Tegan Fairclough in second place. The 717 Unison Racing car of Nikolai Bezrikov in third. Then it's the DIS Sim Racing Glam number 45 in fourth place. The 67 Mugen Sim Racing machine as driven by Zoltan Varkonyi in fifth place. The 166 ID SimSport machine in 6th as driven by Marcus Ster. 7th place and still running the 264 Satellite Racing machine as driven by Adam State, and 2 non-runners, Angel Banegas in the MCM Motorsport number 27 and Eros Masciuli, I hope that's how it's pronounced, in the number 53 Musto Pescara car, both non-runners. And in the GT3 class, looking at the top of the order, it is the 585 Volante Racing by Acetec SimSports as driven by Alessio Neto at this moment in time. Plenty of support for him in the chat there on YouTube, followed by the number 32 car, the B32 Racing car, who've put in an astonishing drive so far. The number 82 Mugen Sim Racing machine in third place, driven right now by Gabor Heves. A great recovery drive from the team so far. It's the 777 DSR Gadget Husset number, I said 777, didn't I? Carl Leckegaard in that machine right there. Then it's the 188 Telefoningen Racing machine in fifth place as driven right now by Gert Nielsen. And rounding off the 6 runners, the 404 Glam Racing machine, Henrik Hoyer at the machine and at the wheel there. Charles Gabriel, who was driving the CKR, we lost them very early on in the race due to hardware issues, so they were early dropouts in the race, but all to play for in the final hour. Alex,
join us in a few minutes' time. We head into the 12th and final hour of the season opener for the 2022 GTR24H Endurance eRacing World Championship as the 12 Hours of Matsusaka continues. Back in a few moments. The 2022 Endurance eRacing World Championship brought to you in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Aztec SimSports, Global Flix, Motorvision.tv, Stengolm, ESTV and Film Vault Limited.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
welcome back. 1 hour remaining for our opening round of the Endurance eRacing World Championship 2022 here from Matsusaka. I'm Yusuf bin Sahel, joined by Kieran McGinley. And well, there is not long left in the race. Now, I do have to apologise to all of our viewers because I remember saying about 5 hours or so ago the fact that there would be battles happening all the way until the end of the race and that we would have a stadium finish. Sadly, it doesn't look like that is quite going to be the case.
Well, I don't know about that one. I'm holding out hope for my voice to last to the end of this sentence, but I'm also holding out hope about the battle for LMP2.
Yeah. Well, there's about 24 seconds between them. At some point it was about 20 seconds, then it jumped up to 30. Now it's starting to come back down. Joao Pitaias at the wheel of the 94 car as he tries to close in on Nabil Aslan in the 21 SEM9 Axel car, and those two have been within about a half a minute of each other for a long time. Sadly though, the 15 of Sabakis not in this battle. They had an issue, they disconnected, I think actually. Robert Pawn, game crash for the 15. It was Robert Pawn who was at the wheel of the 15 Deuces car when the issue occurred, and they just went straight on. I believe it was going through 200R actually.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always going to be a little bit manic in these races. It's getting a bit manic going through 130R right now as Tony Janssen, leader of the GTE class, is got an armada, it could be best described, right behind him. The Viaducton car is trying to find its way through. Bit of a flash of the lights to let them know that they are coming through. Currently 5th in the DPI class, making their way past the GTE leaders in Juice's Motorsports Club. And it going into the final hour, Yusuf, I mean, you've been telling us you need to do your predictions.
Yeah,
we're into the final hour, and it'll be interesting to sort of contrast and compare, what we thought was going to happen and what is actually happening right now. I mean, for example, I don't think any of us predicted the astonishing display that B32 Racing are doing in GT3. They're currently second, Yusuf.
Yeah, a very solid performance for B32. Are we going off our season predictions? That
I think for the race.
Yeah, I think that's fair because you cheated for the season predictions, but we won't go into that.
No, I didn't. I had a strategy, and you outed me before I could use that strategy.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't against the rules, the strategy.
I mean, one would say that those were the rules.
No.
It wasn't outing you. It's just...
Yusuf, this is motorsport.
Yeah.
You have to be clear about what is in the rules, because that wasn't in the rules, so I interpreted that as not being a part of the rules.
No,
therefore
Kieran,
legal.
this is not right, Michael.
Well...
Okay, so our predictions. Should we start with the GT3 and go up to DPI, or DPI and go down?
The choice is entirely yours, Mr.
Love it.
Bennett.
I'm going to start with the GTE just to be weird. No, okay, GT3. We all said Mugen. Now, I think, in fairness, that was a good decision, and I stand by that decision.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tough thing because they showed a really good display in qualifying, didn't they? They were really on top of it, and their average lap time for their pole position was, I think, 6-7 tenths clear of anybody else. So it was a safe bet. You'd have put a mortgage on Mugen in the 82 winning the race, but such is the beauty of endurance racing, and it is the unpredictable nature. You have no idea what sort of issues the team could come across and how they're going to deal with them. The fact that after, 2 hours, maybe even 90 minutes, they found themselves at the back, last, 3 laps down on the leader. You called it out 6 hours ago, or maybe 5 hours ago, and you said they're going to get a top 3 position. We're currently in 3rd.
Yeah, well, hopefully they don't have any more issues, otherwise they won't be in the top 3 anymore. Our 2nd and 3rd positions was a mix between Volante and Glam. Us two, we both went with Volante followed by Glam, whereas Chris Buxton and Alex Goldschmidt went for Glam over Volante. It is appearing to be the fact that it is going to Volante taking that P2 spot. Well, actually not Volante taking P2, Volante winning. And Glam down in quick maths, P6. So, yeah. So, to be honest, none of us got any of our predictions right.
Oh, we loved it. You love it. You absolutely love it.
But we got closer to the correct prediction than Alex and Chris did.
If you want to go with that, Yusuf, I'm fine with having that acclaim too. But it just shows you how unpredictable the GT3 class has been. It's been really great to watch, and long may it continue, Yusuf. So
GTE, we had 3 different predictions. We had a Deuces, we had a Mugen, we had another Deuces, and then we had a Musto 53. It is Deuces who lead, and it was myself and Alex Goldschmidt who went for Deuces. You went for Mugen Sim Racing. Chris went for the Musto 53 car. Sadly, Musto 53 had some issues. They're out. Can't really fault Chris for his predictions. To be fair, I think the GTE class was very close, and all 3 of those choices were decent choices to take the win.
I think so. They were really solid choices. It was going to be a bit of a headache to actually pick out who could have won as easily as that, and the fact that all of us were predicting different winners, different podium positions, meant it was so varied, so open coming into GTE. And it is one of the reasons why yourself and I have been saying, the GTE class is going to be one to watch. There are competitive teams, many competitive drivers, all vying for those positions, and it being so highly competitive means that if you're finishing in the podium places, you've got a good chance of being in the championship battle come the end of the season.
Absolutely. Now, our second predictions for the GTE class, only one of us got this right. There were 2 guesses for Mugen, 1 guess for Deuces, and 1 guess for the Musto 54 car. It was Alex Goldschmidt who predicted the Musto 54 car to be in second. Deegan Fairclough currently at the wheel. I went with Mugen, you went with Deuces, Chris went with Mugen as well. Sadly, Mugen had issues, so we don't really know where Mugen would have ended up in this, but I think Alex takes it because our third predictions, I went with Musto 53, you went with Musto 54, Alex went with Mugen, Chris went with Musto 54. None of us said the 717 of Unison or in the DIS Sim Racing Lab, so Alex gets the crown of GTE prediction champion.
That's very fair enough, yeah, absolutely. Big thumbs up from Alex behind the scenes.
We need to get him a crown.
Well, for GTE, we need to get him a crown that says GTE prediction
champion
Matsusaka.
We can have it written here, like on the desk.
That's it, yeah. A crown just in front of the desk, yeah. I think so. That's a good idea.
Actually, now that I think about it, what happened to my sword? Because before we came, Alex took a picture. It's like, I have the sword. Oh, okay, he's pointing that it's I'm gonna have to get that. I can, knight him, crown or champion of the GTE
live on air. Oh.
That's a good idea. Well, when you leave, right after this half hour, go get me my sword, and then I can do the crowning. Because I'm stuck here. I've got like the wiring under my shirt.
It's a tempting offer, but
you're gonna have to decline.
This voice is gonna need an ice bath, let alone anything else. So
fair enough. Okay, LMP2. We all went with Burst, apart from Chris Buxton, who was completely trolling us, said Satellite Racing. Now, all of us are wrong because Burst are not leading, which means that actually Chris Buxton is doing the best out of all of us because he put Burst second, while the rest of us put Deuces down to be second. Now, Deuces would have been second if it wasn't for the fact that their PC died. So that happened. Third, I said Satellite, you and Alex said Axel, Chris said Deuces. We were all wrong because it is the 77. Yeah, it is the 77 of. It's not appearing on my sheet, so I'm forgetting who the 77 is now.
77 of Team Iris, my favourite livery.
Why does it say 7 on my sheet?
Well, your sheet is wrong then, isn't it, Yusuf?
It is.
Tusk. Yes, it's the 77 of Team Iris there. Yeah, one of my favourite liveries on the grid this season. So I'm really happy it's doing well. That livery deserves it.
So what we're saying is Chris Buxton, who predicted Satellite to win the LMP2 class, is our king of the LMP2 predictions.
This is what we're talking about. This is how, in a sense, how unpredictable it'll be, because this is just proving the point that we've all based it on, these drivers are quick, their pace has been strong, but you cannot predict the sort of trials and tribulations each team and each driver has to go through. I was talking about these problems, these mandatory issues that they seem mandatory. They're not actually mandatory. We don't throw a spanner in the works on purpose, but things like hardware failures that we've seen with juices. We've seen connectivity issues. We've seen CPU issues that has befouled a GT3 team as well. It's all things that you cannot predict. That's going to put a spanner in the works for all of those quick drivers, and it allows those teams that maybe thought podium's an outside chance and has put them straight into the limelight.
You've just given me a fantastic idea. So
Dangerous.
How we've got a LAN event coming up in October for our series finale in Le Mans. What if, right? So just imagine you've got this big hall, lots of sim rigs around, and then you've got a giant obstacle course that goes around it, right? So imagine everything like swinging death lasers and big deep pit of those balls, like the ones that you get in play areas for little children that you've got to try to wade through and you sink in, right? And what we do is we get our contestants, I'd say our drivers, so each team have to submit one driver, and they've got to race this obstacle course. And when you get to the end of the obstacle course, there are boxes, and you got to pick a box, and in each of the box is one of your mandatory issues that you get. And essentially it's just to find out what your mandatory issue is, and it's like a massive game show that we have on top of it. So it could be you end up crashing into the barrier at full speed, and then in the race they've got to go and crash into a barrier at full speed. Another one could be your PC dies, and then we just get Peter to be really mad and run at their PC with a hammer and smash it.
If anybody's keeping track, the time is midnight midnight on the 27th of February 2022 Central European time. Mark it in your diaries as that's the moment.
It's actually 1:15.
Yusuf completely lost the plot. So mark that in your diaries.
So back to DPI predictions.
Yes. I thought you'd never ask.
Yeah. So Chris was trolling again with his DPI predictions, and he put Moradness over Burst. See, you, me, and Alex, we all said Burst Moradness. Chris went for Moradness Burst. It is Burst leading from Moradness. In fairness to Chris Buxton, he did get his third place prediction right, because he said Unison, and Unison are currently third in the hypercar class. Denis Eshenko at the wheel. You and Alex both went with Adrenaline. I went with SEM9 Axel. Sadly, SEM9 Axel had some issues and they are out of the race. Alistair Young was at the wheel. I like to think that they could have been the ones there in third, but they aren't. So technically means it's a three-way tie for DPI, which means that we tied for the GT3 title. There's a three-way tie for the DPI title. Chris Buxton is the LMP2 champion, and Alex Goldschmidt is the GTE champion.
Of course, that's all provisional results, because we've still got 45 minutes left of the race, so it's all provisional at the moment. But I think,
provisionally, we're losers.
But I think that's a testament to how unpredictable.
I'm trying to work out how you're going to phrase this one now.
How unpredictable this whole endurance racing is. Well, it is, because at the end of the day, we are basing our predictions on they've been quick at this track so far. I think one of the big surprises, as we are looking on the 18 Burst Esport Simplexity machine, I didn't think that the team would be leading their own class by such a margin, and it is a big margin as well. 7 laps around Suzuka. That's no tall order. They have been working hard at that one. They have been absolutely remarkable in terms of consistency. Yes, a couple of spins here and there, but that's to be expected over 12 hours. You're not going to be perfect running all the way through, but to be leading by that distance is absolutely electric from them, and it really does show you that Burst are going to be ones to watch, especially in hypercar this season. They are going to be a tough team to beat,
and I'm really interested to see what SEM9 Axel can bring, because I was not expecting them to be at the pace that they've been at in the LMP2 class. I think in qualifying, Burst have had the upper hand on practically everyone, but in the race, Axel have looked very, very good, and Burst have had some issues. We'll see whether it's just a case of blips here at Matsusaka, or whether it's something that will continue throughout the season. But I think SEM9 Axel and Deuces are genuine contenders for the LMP2 championship.
Yeah, and obviously there's quite a few things to take away from the season opener. There will be a couple of needles in the haystack that you need to find and try and take away from the first opening race of the season. But we've seen really good pace from a lot of drivers and a lot of teams coming into the new season, and some of them have slightly tripped over some obstacles, but it's sizing up to be an absolutely brilliant season coming up.
Oh no, I pressed the wrong button. I had a replay lined up, and then I pressed the R button for replay again, which sent us back to live.
Oh no.
So I will get a replay up, because there was a car just sat stationary on the racing line on the start-finish straight at the finish line. It was extremely bizarre. So I have got the replay pretty much up. I'm just going to wait for this to load, and then we can throw to it. Do you want to have a guess as to which car it was?
Well, I'm not going to stick my neck on the line for that one. But I'm eager to see, because stopping on the racing line would indicate that if they've manually stopped, then it would indicate some sort of failure, maybe with the screens or something like that. If they've made an emergency stop, something's wrong with the screen they were on. That's what I would think immediately. But we'll wait and see how it all.
We have the replay ready. Are you guys ready to show it on screen?
No.
They're not even listening to us.
That's okay.
It's that time of the night.
It's that time of night where there's a lot going on, so it's not a problem. But looking through the rest of the order, it's pretty evenly spaced out across the entire field. And looking at Jesper Pedersen then leading the way in the DPI class in the number 18 Burst Esports Simplexity machine, leading then the LMP2s is the number 21 Sem9 Axle machine, Nabil Aslan, at the wheel of that machine. Again, the team doing a sublime job out there, leading by a lap around here at Matsusaka. And GTE currently being led by Juice's Motorsport Club. There they are then out on track. Tony Janssen in the machine at the moment and leading the way in class, currently leading by just over a minute, close to 70 seconds out there on track. So again, a really nice job from the Juice's Motorsport Club team in GTE class. And leading the GT3 class is the 585 Volante Racing by Aztec Simsport, Eliseo Neto at the wheel of the Audi machine at the time. So there's your class leaders going into what is right now the last 40 minutes of the race, and Eliseo Neto gives us a little bit of a tail slide coming out through the Dunlop curve.
You'd love to see it, and I think production is ready for this replay. So let's get going. This is Viaducton coming through the final corner onto the start-finish straight, and it's almost like their wheel disconnects, and then the car almost collides with Burst, and then comes to a stop.
Yeah, that's a bizarre one, isn't it? That is, yeah. What I can only think is what you're saying, that the wheel has disconnected, so it's just kept the input in. So that's the only thing I can think of. And
that, or they went through the corner and they just fell asleep.
No, I don't think it was that.
Yeah.
I think there's some sort of disconnection there with their rig, and they did bring it back to the garage. So if they want to get out there, they would have had to have let race control know, and I think that's the live footage as well. So they are now back out onto track, so they would have had to go through the motions of letting race control know and let them know that they are planning to rejoin the race. And we've seen a couple of those penalties, mainly for the number 67 Mugen Sim Racing machine. They have fallen victim to that penalty a couple of times this race is alone.
Yeah, and I'm keeping an eye on the GT class because Alexander Zakharov 13 seconds behind DIS in the battle for third place in the GTE class. Whether they can close in, we'll have to wait and see. Currently the pace between the pair of them relatively even, both in the high 59s. In fact, last time round DIS Sim Racing being few tenths quicker.
DIS have just come into the pit lane, so that's going to be the driver into the pits. So that's we're not sure who the driver is in that car, but what we do know, and we are sure of, is that Alexander Zakharov is making the move then and will move up a position.
I'm pretty sure it's Andy Kurtzen at the wheel of the DIS car. I think we saw him jumping in when we were actually interviewing Yannick Gottardsen about an hour ago. With 38 minutes left on the clock, that will be well and truly the final pit stop for DIS Sim Racing Lab. Also won't be a full pit stop, so a bit of a splash and dash, and those will be old tyres staying on that DIS Sim Racing Lab car as well.
They will indeed, and that SEM 9 Axel car getting very much onto the grass and sideways, leading the LMP2 class. You don't want to be throwing away this position this late on in the race, but making sure everything's all held on. There's the DIS Sim Racing Lab machine car making its way out of the pit lane and out back onto the circuit. So that's, you would think, Yusuf, their last scheduled pit stop, and maybe a fresh set of tyres, a bit of fuel in the tank now, go to the end and see what happens.
The one thing that I'm keeping my eye out on is how much longer can the 717 stay out for, because essentially every extra lap they stay out for is 1 to 2 seconds less time in the pit stop, and they were only 11 seconds behind, so if they can stay out for, I reckon, 9 laps, that will be enough to jump them ahead of the 45. And again, this is the battle for third place in the GTE class. I'm not sure when the 717 last pitted. It might even be a case that they could make it to the end from here, but I'm pretty sure they have one more stop to go.
So Henry Sinnick then taking on the last stint in the Muradnes E-Stars number 64 machine, and in theory taking this car to the checkered flag, which is 37 minutes away. Yusuf, I have to say, this race has absolutely flown by. There's been a lot of action, there's been a lot of overtaking, and it's really only taken until the 10th hour, 11th hour in this race where things have really spaced out, and we're into this sort of last 40 minutes where it's getting a clearer picture now of who is leading each class and how the strategies have really got them to where they are.
I think we have a driver ready for an interview. I'm not 100% sure on the team, but I think it's Alexander Sesha. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How's it going?
I can definitely hear you, man. It's going good. Yeah.
Sorry, just remind me, because I'm quickly going through my notes. Oh no, I've got it. Volante Racing leading the class.
Yeah.
Things have been a little bit hairy in the GT3 class, but you've managed to keep things clean, and you have a lead. Is this where you kind of saw yourselves from? I mean, even before qualifying, what were your goals really coming into the opening race of the season?
Honestly, gonna be completely honest, our goal is to win. Our goal is to win this whole thing, and this is a very good start.
Now that you've essentially had qualifying, you've had part of the race to look at, who do you see as your main contenders for this championship?
It definitely has to be the 82 Merchant Racing team and the other Audi. That's definitely our two competitors.
As you mentioned, you guys are in the Audi R8, the Mugen sim racing car that you mentioned in that McLaren. Have you had a chance to actually drive in the McLaren, and what do you think are the strengths and weaknesses of the Audi versus the McLaren, and do you think there are any circuits on the calendar that will strongly favour one car over the other?
Actually, I haven't checked. We are pretty late on schedule by SATEC, so it was just they had the Audi and we just had to pick that. So.
Kieran, I'll throw to you if you've got any questions.
Yeah, Alexander, thank you for joining us. I mean, this must be a fantastic sight for you, seeing your car leading the way. You say you're here to win. I mean, talk us through your overall thoughts on this race. I mean, how much information, how much data have you gathered from this race alone?
We have gathered already a lot of information. We didn't know where the other teams really were, but we quickly got that from qualifying and the start of the race. So it's yeah, there's a lot to take from this.
And as we're heading into this final half now, final 35 minutes, I mean, Alessio's in the car right now. I'm assuming the plan is to keep him in the car. How do you sort of treat this final stretch? Do you leave Alessio to it and just only give him the basics? Or are you always talking to him throughout?
We are talking, but yeah, it's basically just him driving the West and taking it carefully. Got a very good lead, so we can afford to lose some time here and there. So, yeah.
Okay, I do have one final question for you, Alexander, and this is a very important question. So, are you ready for this?
Okay.
Okay.
I am ready.
I've been asking all of the drivers, what is your go-to food to eat during an endurance race?
Frozen pizza.
I respect that. That.
Not even heated, Alexander.
No. It's getting heated, of course. It's getting heated, but it's in the oven, and that's easy food.
What kind of pizza? Are we talking margarita? Are we talking... yeah.
Just pepperoni pizza.
Okay, we'll take that. I think I got a mouthing from our fellow commentator, which was, he better not say pineapple, essentially.
There's no pineapple. Don't you worry.
Perfect. There we go.
Worry.
We can end on that note, Alexander, that's for sure. Well, Alexander, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Good luck to yourself and the team for the rest of the half an hour.
Yeah, thank you.
So there you go, another driver who says pineapple not on pizza. And luckily heating the frozen pizza before eating. That's the most important
I'm glad
part.
you brought that up, because we would have been very confused otherwise as to how this pizza was being eaten.
Well, you have to narrow it down. You have to get those information.
I mean, that would be a really badass move, right? You pull a frozen pizza out, you tear off the polystyrene, and you just bite into it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would go down. I'll be honest with you. Frozen pizza, definitely need to...
I think we've got to try it next time.
Well, that's an interesting screen coming into the last half an hour. Have a look at the radar.
If it rains.
If it rains in this last half an hour,
Okay,
well,
that... looking.
we will see. We will wait and see how it all turns out. Whilst we digest that bit of news, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, it will be the final half an hour of the 12 hours of Matsusaka. Rain is on the radar. Don't think about tuning away. We'll see you in a bit.
...2022 Endurance eRacing World Championship brought to you in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Aztec Sim Sports, Global Flicks, Motorvision.tv, Stengol, ESTV, and Film Vault Limited.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.